Hello, my friends. Welcome to me, your host, Christian Watson. So, recently, there has been quite the intellectual gladiator fight on the right and in other sectors of American society over the issue of pornography. Now, this has been a touchstone issue for many right-leaning groups and causes for a very, very long time, going back to the moral majority in the 80s. And Thatcherism in Britain and all kind of stuff. And that's not to say I don't like Margaret Thatcher. I think Margaret Thatcher is one of the most brilliant prime ministers to ever grace Britain, and I wish there were more Margaret Thatchers. But on the social side, there are some things that I find a little bit concerning. And this touchstone cause has been emboldened by a recent action prompted by the Utah state legislature with their campaign, as this AP article says a few days ago, against porn by trying to filter phones bought and sold in the state with porn filters, anti-porn filters. The article says conservative lawmakers in Utah have fired another salvo in their longtime campaign against online porn with a new requirement that all cell phones and tablets sold in the state automatically block pornography in a plan that critics call a significant intrusion on free speech. Supporters and critics alike are now waiting to find out if the new governor, Spencer Cox, Republican, will sign or veto a proposal that the GOP-controlled legislature passed this month. Of course, Cox is being quite mum on the issue. I can guess why. I think that, as Frederick Bastiat mentioned, when you have a bunch of private interests running public policy, you have to kind of adhere to private interests rather than actually adhere to the principles which underlie good public policy. And those principles are the preservation of individual rights, which do not necessarily involve nannying me into a certain state of character, but that's for another video, of course. So I understand why the governor is quiet. He just shouldn't be. This should be a no-brainer, especially if he dare call himself a conservative in the American tradition. Anyway, the underlying and this bill is being billed. This proposed law is being billed as a method to protect children. In fact, one of the top anti-porn lobbying groups said about this bill that it actually protects children because parents can't get the filters on the phones. That's literally what their argument is. They quite literally said, hey, this protects children because a lot of phone filters that block pornography are not actually easy for parents to access. So even in the barest sense, this is being billed as a safety precaution. And Utah, just for information, has been a state that declared pornography a public health crisis. This is a particularly hard video for me to make, my friends. Because what we see in Utah, we are not seeing a genuine effort to protect anyone, except the moral sensibilities of the legislature. We're seeing an effort to try to compel moral character to a certain form through government regulation. The free speech argument is very interesting. It's very interesting. The government overreach argument is very interesting. All that stuff is very interesting. But I find those arguments to be a little bit trite compared to what is being thrown at so many people in the heavenlies right now about this measure. The measure is very simple. And the traditionalist disdain against pornography is very simple. There is this idea, this Aristotelian idea, that emerges from the Nicomachean ethics and the politics, and has been translated throughout all kinds of different forms in history, that says that the community, the government, is not only invested with the power to legislate moral character, but also should legislate moral character. And the only way you can obtain that moral character is in the context of the community. Why do you think the Utah people claimed that pornography was a public health crisis? Even though public health itself is a misnomer and an oxymoron. It's a misnomer and an oxymoron that was used over this COVID-19 pandemic to justify a lot of things that were not morally correct. And it is being used in a similar way to justify something that is not morally correct. So let me explain my argument. It is not morally correct for a government to tell me or to make me have a certain thing or do a certain thing to get to their aim. It is not morally correct because A, it infringes upon my personal autonomy. And my personal autonomy is connected to the idea of liberty. Liberty being the action that manifests in my actions and animates my movements all around this world. If you quite literally infringe upon that, you are infringing upon my ability to live as a human being. So there's a matter of potential here that is not being fulfilled because you're infringing upon my ontological autonomy. That's number one. Number two, it is unethical in that it deviates from the prescribed purpose of all state governments. And the prescribed purpose of all state governments is to simply help protect individuals' rights in their localities. But also, my friends, let's get deeper. Moral character. Where does moral character come from, my friends? Moral character cannot emerge from legislation. If that was the case, the temperance movement would have been very successful because they managed to get the creme de la creme of all legislation. They managed to get a constitutional amendment passed. It did nothing to repair the character of drunks and cravens. It simply made them more drunks and cravens. Trying to filter out pornography will not fix the moral character of someone who may be seeped in a pornography addiction. I should know. That's right. At the beginning of my young adulthood, when I finally got a little bit of freedom, I struggled with the pornography addiction. And guess what? I overcame it. I overcame it. You know, it didn't take a piece of legislation to make me realize, Christian, you're sitting around all day, spending your free time off when you're not in university, watching pornography. Or even when you are in a university, instead of doing assignments, you're watching pornography. How in the world is this benefiting you? How is this helping you? More importantly, how is this getting you closer to God? It's not. How is this fueling your dreams? You see, it wasn't necessarily even the porn. See, the porn is simply the medium for this sort of depravity to manifest. It wasn't the porn that made me addicted. It wasn't the porn that got me. It was the lack of fulfillment in my life. It was my sadness, my depression. It was every single thing that leaked into the crevices of someone who was just trying to find his way in the world. And instead of having a human being there, the pornography took over. The pornography took over, took root, manifested, and had its way with me for a while until I decided, you know what, enough. It's going to be difficult, but I'm just going to put down this phone. I'm not going to watch anything. I'm going to go out and run. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to read books. I'm going to make a YouTube channel. I'm going to make a podcast. I'm going to do things that are going to keep me active and keep me away from the allure of that kind of stuff. But the Utah state legislature seems to think that by putting a filter, they're making both a moral statement and they're doing something materially beneficial. My friends, if I am to accept their proposition that this is about children, wouldn't it be incumbent upon the parents, not a government, the parents, to A, figure out how to filter their children's phones, or B, not give children phones or tablets in the first place, or C, supervise their children when they are on their computers or tablets? Wouldn't that be judicious? Wouldn't that be wise? No, but according to the Utah state legislature, they can handle all of that. Porn's not the issue. You know, and I'll make another video talking about the statistical evidence that a lot of people like John Doyle and so on are just throwing against porn. Porn's not the issue, guys. Porn's not the issue. A broken spirit is the issue. A lack of fulfillment is the issue. A lack of an idle mind is the issue. Those are the things that allow a pornography addiction to arise. And let's understand, pornography addiction is no more dangerous than any other kind of addiction. Alcohol addiction is dangerous. Sex addiction is actually more dangerous than pornography addiction, statistically. There are all kind of other addictions that have the similar level of danger that pornography addiction does. My friends, you have to understand something. When something becomes a flashpoint for a socio-political cause, it is very, 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 very popular to make that thing the boogeyman. But that actually does a disservice to people who are actually struggling to pornography. If someone's actually struggling with pornography, you don't fix their character, you don't fix a broken heart by putting a blocker in front of them. You make them even more angsty. You make them even more. And this is the thing. the fundamental philosophical question here is, how do we understand moral character? How does moral character arise? And I say, as that ancient Stoic philosopher in Rome said, that we all have an inclination towards virtue, because virtue does matter in my opinion. Character matters in my opinion. We have an inclination towards virtue, but that inclination can only be understood by me. How can a group of bureaucrats who sit in a governing body that was financed and funded by a parasitic interaction with their citizens on their resources, taxes, how can they have omniscient knowledge, omniscient presence about what is best for me in my life? This is the problem of the overall idea of there is a single kind of sort of more way of moral acting. I think virtue is definable, but how we interact with that definability is very, very different in all of our lives. So I just don't understand how in the world they can understand what is best for you in your life. They can't. And even if you agree with me that, yeah, excessive pornography watching is probably not good for you. Excessive pornography watching is probably not good for you. Then, even if you agree with that sentiment, it's up to me to decide, or up to whoever watches the pornography to decide, what is excessive and what is not excessive. If the Utah state legislature had any interest in actually dealing with this issue, they would not be in their chambers trying to pass legislation. They'd be out in the streets, starting up nonprofits, or working with existing nonprofits that help men recover from pornography addiction. That's the best way. Letting someone know you love them. You can fix this public health crisis anyway. And when you say it's a public health crisis, you usurp the control of the individual, you put it in some grand abstraction, and it makes all of us feel powerless without having a broader abstraction, the government, to come in and take care of the issue. So for conservatives to be sitting here trying to make an abstraction so the government can come in and legislate morality is for conservatives to reject the fundamental ethic of the Anglo-American tradition, which is liberty. Liberty, my friends. You don't fix moral character by legislating stuff. You fix moral character by telling someone you love them. You fix moral character by engaging in epistemic humility. You fix moral character by being a brother and a sister to someone. You fix moral character by teaching people how to be in your personal life and giving them a shoulder to lean on. You fix moral character through voluntary associations. You fix moral character by leaving people alone. If they don't want to take your suggestions voluntarily, leave them alone and let them do it within their own life. You fix moral character that way. And any other argument that says otherwise is predicated upon a falsehood about society, predicated upon a falsehood about the individual man, predicated upon a falsehood about how we work as a human being. So I'm very happy that no one banned me when I was having my addiction. I'm happy that I was able to figure out, Christian, there are more things in life. Your loneliness will subside. Someone will love you one day. There are more things in life than just watching this crap and being unfulfilled and being unsatisfied. Go read a book, Christian. Go start a podcast, Christian. Go start a channel, Christian. Go be a commentator, Christian. Go be a public intellectual, Christian. Make something of yourself. That is what cured my pornography addiction. And I suspect that a good majority of men just need something to be fulfilled by. And by doing this, the Utah State Legislature and traditionalist conservatives show me they don't care about that. They simply care about making a moral point. And in my opinion, not only is that ineffective, it's frankly callous. Quite callous. So, think on it. I'll make a longer video about the statistics around pornography very soon. But as always, my friends, I love you, and please stay pensive. Bye-bye.